From sun-soaked SoCal to the streets of the Bay, expect Makenna to dive deep with people, shaking things up, real activists fighting for change, and everyday locals living California's wild, unfiltered dreams. No scripts, no fluff, just bold conversations and true stories that capture the chaos and heart of this iconic state. This is California Unfiltered. Hit play and let's get started.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you can see, we have a lovely guest with us. We have Garrett Pagel with the Vital Choice Project. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right, so before we get into it, I just have a couple announcements I want to make, and then we'll get right into it. The Home Tribe Con, October 25th and 26th, I will be there speaking about protecting charter schools and keeping the trans crap out of schools too. And then I will be doing Media Row then too up in Redding, California. So DM me on Instagram if you want to come. I can give you 20% off that. And then, like I said, last show, our new show is at 6 o'clock instead of 7 every Monday, live Pacific Standard Time. Now that we got that out of the way, Garrett, go ahead and tell us who you are, what you do, and all the good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So my name is Garrett Pagel. I'm the founder and president of the Vital Choice Project, and then I also do some political consultant work in the MAHA movement, specifically around like natural nutritional guidelines and health policies that are going to hopefully break us away from big pharma's influence here on our food supply that causes all the problems that we are seeing very heavily hit Gen Z right now.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me to my first question. I mean, in 2025 and in recent years, childhood obesity has been, skyrocketing through the roof. What have you been seeing? What have you been hearing about, what lawmakers are doing to address this?
Yeah, so I think that this is something that stems back. It's throughout the United States history for a while now, especially all the way back to like the time of the Flexner Report, when we basically funded a guy who wasn't a doctor to write a report about medicine that villainized naturalistic, homeopathic, holistic healthcare practices, and kind of was supposed to, in their words, modernize healthcare, but it didn't end up doing that. It just ended up creating this sick care system where we now a food supply that causes a ton of chronic illnesses, obesity being one of them, and then promoting a bunch of profits for those companies at the top because they're out producing, lots of prescriptions. They're either doing surgeries, which are expensive, and we're seeing like to bring back to obesity, like we have this rise in the GLP-1 drugs that are happening nationwide, and everyone's saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh, diet and nutrition and lifestyle won't change this. You should just inject yourself with a synthetic drug and that's going to fix your problems for you.
In the end, it doesn't really help. It just kind of mitigates, it kind of masks it a little bit. I heard it was made with like lizard venom. Is that true?
I am not 100% sure on what the like components are that it's made. All I know is it's synthetic, and in my belief,
Yeah.
these things should not be, you know, administered to the masses. Similar to
Hmm.
circumstances on like vaccinations, it should be completely choice. And some of the vaccines that we see on the market shouldn't even be on the market. Like there's zero reason to be giving a newborn baby the hepatitis B vaccine and
Hmm.
mixing it with all these other vaccinations that are in the schedule. It's wild that we went from, I believe we had like 84 total doses in the 1980s to like almost 250 or something nowadays. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's just so much medicine that's pushed on us through government required vaccine mandates or the vaccine schedules that are adopted by each state. And it's really good to see a lot of these kind of things coming to the surface now, where people can actually question it and not get called a kooky weirdo for
Hmm.
just questioning the science behind something.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there was a time where medicine and the vaccines weren't really pushed. I mean, when did it kind of like make the shift?
Yeah, so it stems back to really the beginning of all the problems that we're facing right now on this health in the health world and the health topic in the
Hmm.
United States. Stems back to when the Flexner Report, which I believe was 1912 or 14 when it was
Hmm.
officially written, and like I said earlier, it just villainized like the natural homeopathic healers in the United States. Like before the Flexner report, we had sunbeds in our hospitals because
Mm-hmm.
that sunlight can heal and different access to your environment. I think that's another big player in this whole health problem in the United States right now is we see the rise of things in Gen Z where we're also one of the laziest generations, one of the least active generations in terms of physical activity. A lot of us are staying indoors. We're not going outside. We're not interacting with the environment and nature, but the parts of it that we are interacting with are highly synthesized, highly processed, and they're not the direct um, forms of nature that we should be surrounding ourselves with. And I think that that plays a lot with just where does this all lead us to? And that's where we need to have a government that one recognizes the issue and two is willing to act on it. And I think that's something
Mm-hmm.
we're finally starting to see here now in the United States, where we're understanding the food supply is completely captured. There's a lot of problems that exist within our food supply, whether it's the way it's processed, the chemicals we use. For example, petroleum is literally used to dye our food colors to make it more enticing for children. You have things like titanium dioxide in the foods. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Seed oils, whether it's canola or um, just Crisco, all these other types of oils that are in the foods that you don't see anywhere else in the world. Uh, we have some of the most authorized ingredients of any nation, a developed nation in the world, and we're also, as we continue to get wealthier, we continue to get sicker. So there's just a lot of
Mm-hmm.
problems around it, and that's why I think it really comes down to it's a cultural issue, but on top of it, it's also a policy issue because we need to get back to just the basics. And like RFK likes to say, we need to get back to gold standard science.
Yeah, no, we definitely do. I mean, you see the difference in Europe and Asia, the colors of like Fanta, for example, like orange soda. You can just tell there's like less, more natural ingredients in the ones in Europe versus what we have here. So it just, I don't understand why we have to put them in. Maybe it's because it's cheaper, but I don't see that being cheaper. I see it being more expensive because we have all these extras. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think one, I agree. I don't think it makes things cheaper. I think it's more convenient, and it also drives up profits.
Mm-hmm.
When we saw this whole thing with the Flexner report, and then the Rockefeller buyout of like all the oils, which then turned into big pharma and bought up big food and all these other things. We see this correlation where the sicker that people are, the more chronic illnesses people are getting, the higher these profits of these companies are getting. I think it's really comes down to I don't know if it was designed in the beginning for something conspiratorial to sicken the nation and cause these issues, but we do see them choosing profits over simple solutions, which would be to just remove these you know chemicals. I think too it comes down to just the way that the it all is in bed together in a way. You have the insurance companies that profit when people are sick, and you have the prescription companies that profit when people are sick, and the people that then end up paying for a lot of this is the government. Like a lot of our um, like things that expenses is into our nation's health, and when you have a sick nation, it's hard for us to progress in a better direction.
Mm-hmm. So what is MAHA doing? What is RFK Jr. doing now?
Yeah, so the Make America Healthy Again movement is kind of, I would say it's the most successful arm of Trump's second term here.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a lot of policy getting passed on this front. It's also very popular. We're seeing a lot of medical freedom groups and advocacy popping up across the country. It's something that a lot of people that are moderate to center left or center right are all able to come together around because it's hard to disagree on something that's so important as health. Um,
Right.
for example, we've seen like here in Arizona where I'm located, we've seen the passing of HB 2164, which removed all the petroleum food dyes from the school lunches. And then we saw it in California as well, which remind me of the bill code. Do you remember what it was called?
Sorry, you froze a little bit on my screen
Oh,
here.
the California one. What was the name of the bill? It was too
Oh, I have it written down here. It is Assembly Bill 2316.
awesome. Yeah. So we're seeing bills
Yeah.
like that getting passed, and a lot of these are getting passed unanimously. like here in Arizona, we saw it go through completely unchecked. There was no pushback from either side. Both sides of the aisle came together to pass something that was just generally better for our children's health. And I think that that's just something that we need to get back to as a country. We need to be able to come together around issues and fight for whichever one is, whichever one is affecting us better, whichever one is creating a better future for us. We're in a situation where it's difficult for us to continue on the path we're going without major consequences.
Definitely. And this is not just an Arizona issue. This is not just a California issue. It's not just a U.S. issue. I mean, I think it's a global issue. It affects everybody. So, I mean, what is Vital Choice doing to kind of work with MAHA, work kind of with like the Trump administration, their narrative with health in America?
Yeah. So me and my friend, one of my best friends, Ashton, and I started an organization called the Vital Choice Project. It now encompasses Vital Choice chapters and our Breakaway program, as well as our Breakaway tour, which we just announced today. But it's basically college chapter oriented organization that goes in and interacts with the next generation of healthcare students. We
Hmm.
set up chapters among pre med students and pre healthcare students that are willing to question the things they're being taught and why it is the way the system teaches them the way it does. For example, one of the big things we highlight is the lack of nutritional training. Most people can go to their doctor now and ask them if they've ever had nutritional training when they were undergrad student or in med school, and a lot of them are going to say no. But if you ask them that if they ever got training in pharmacology, they will say yes, and that's because 99% of the time nutrition is not mandated by their medical system, by their medical education, while
Hmm.
pharmacology is a mandatory course to take. So what we do is we go into the college campuses, we build chapters among students who have this like-minded um, belief that we've already got everything we need. God created everything we need to be a thriving society. We just have to get back to understanding naturalistic medicine and naturalistic lifestyles. And a lot of this comes down to hopefully becoming a pressure point in the future where we have college chapters set up all over the United States that are questioning and pushing back on their teachers to where the point where these colleges will begin to mandate nutrition courses and be a little bit more lax on maybe some of the terminology around pharmacology and the mandates around making sure everyone is learning how to prescribe medicine instead of actually heal their patients.
Hmm. What what I was kind of thinking about here was I saw a video on Instagram about the Russian way to cure a cold. It was just vodka. I'm like, why can't we just do that to, you know? But I'm not trying to like push that like for minors, so you know all that stuff. But I just thought it was funny how like, Russia and all these other countries have these like more natural kind of ways of combating a cold or combating like illnesses. I don't understand why we're so reliant on these synthetic like medications and vaccines and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy when you look at it just how many options there are naturally and sometimes even cheaper. Majority of the time it's cheaper because if the way I look at it is our healthcare should be our shopping carts. We should food is
Hmm.
medicine, and that's been a belief for a very long time. And for whatever reason, it's been kind of like villainized here in the United States, where if we've met a couple students on college campuses that have chronic illnesses, and they talk to us about the just some of like how it was getting diagnosed, and when they'd ask their doctor, oh well, is there anything that changing my diet can help with? Is there anything that changing the things I'm interacting with can help with the symptoms? They say, oh well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, diet's not going to change your outcomes. You've already got the illness. It's not going to go away. It's chronic. Blah blah blah. And we've seen it so many times where people can get into clinical remission, myself included, from their chronic illness through just treating it as food as medicine. And I'm not sitting here saying like I'm the most in shape person in the world. I'm the most healthy person in the world. I just was able to understand what my chronic illness was, what parts of my diet were causing the symptoms, removing those parts, and then training my gut microbiome back into this, I can eat whatever I want now kind of thing. But obviously still play it careful and cautious. But I go throughout my daily life without majority of the symptoms that I had. I'm not ending up in the ER anymore. I'm not dehydrated. I'm not going to the bathroom 14, 15, 16 times a day. And that's the goal behind Vital Choice is to just teach this next generation of healers You don't need to just prescribe. You don't need to do surgery every time. You can relate it back to nutrition and diet and exercise. And if those things don't work, that's fine. Come back to the drawing board and maybe then go the allopathic route. But we
Hmm.
shouldn't be focusing so much on the second you end up with symptoms of something, here's a painkiller and here's a steroid or here's an immune system suppressant or an anti-inflammatory or things like that. It should come down to, well, let's check out your diet first. Try this for a couple weeks to a month. Let's see what happens. If you're seeing a success rate there, then you don't need to visit the allopathic model. But the problem is when you ignore the allopathic model, uh, y- you don't make money, and that's what the system doesn't like.
That's so unfortunate too, and I've realized with certain foods it makes me more bloated. It makes me gain weight. Like certain breads, I can't have sugars and different stuff. I've been trying. I just don't have the time. But I want to make my own bread. I have before, but making your own stuff is healthier. Growing your own vegetables and fruits is a lot healthier because you also have the chemicals that farmers spray on them, and that I feel like that kind of adds to why we're getting so sick. And then you have all the the pesticides and the bugs, and so it's better. I know a lot of people can't do it because a lot of people live in apartments or whatever, but it's just a lot healthier to just make and grow your own stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's something too with this like industrialized world that we live in, and
Hmm.
this where we have a booming population here in the United States. So we are stacked on top of each other. There isn't as much land, depending on where you if you're rural or in a metro area. Um, One of the things too, though, that you brought up that's really important to touch on is we do spray all of our food with stuff like glyphosate and other pesticides, and those things are not. They should not be ingested at all. They shouldn't be digested by us, and we see this all the time where the big three that I see being targeted the most in the MAHA movement right now would be glyphosate, which is the battle of pesticides and getting back to truly organic produce. Then there's the battle of the petroleum food dyes, which is to remove the food coloring from our food supply. And then I would say the worst, potentially the worst, would be the seed oil takeover of everything. Everything is cooked in some form of synthetic oil instead of other options that are healthier and cheaper, like beef tallow, butter, avocado oil, things like that. It's we have this society where we've become lazy in a sense to how we think about what it is we're eating, and no one wants to just question of like, well, why is it this way? Does it have to be this way? And then understanding that it doesn't.
I just realized I was on mute. Sorry about that. But yeah, no, you're completely right. It's just it doesn't make sense to me because there's a natural way to do it, but it's a money thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So kind of talk more about Vital Choice. How did you get it started? When did you get it started? I've seen on your website and some of your social media posts, you also work with people like Mike Tyson, I believe it was, Rob Schneider, a whole list of people.
Yeah, so it came about when I was working at Turning Point Action during the last election cycle, and I was looking through a bunch of data on just like the where people were voting based on how high chronic illness rates were, and what came back, we've realized that the higher rates of chronic illness or the more prevalent a chronic illness rate is in a district, the less likely
Hmm.
that district is to vote. The turnout rates are lower, and that's really where it came from. It was to a beginning in the beginning. It was we wanted to try to create some sort of like pack or C4 that tried to deal with this issue. And obviously now it's stemmed into this much bigger thing that is an educational 501c3 nonprofit. And so what we decided was, what if we tried to fix the issue in total by going back to the education of healthcare? And one of our big things that we like to say is we can change healthcare by changing the way it's educated. I truly believe that because if we think about it as any other culture shift in America. When you go back to the base or the root of it and you change it over time slowly, you start to see it a lot more prevalent down the line, but as in a much broader scenario. So the same idea applies to this. We're going to the colleges where the indoctrination starts and the lack of training starts, and it's where the more majority of our medical system is funded by big pharmaceutical companies. A majority of college students that need grant assistance or financial aid are getting grants that are funded by big pharmaceutical companies or CEOs within those companies and things like that. And we're going in to try to catch them while they're brand new to college, freshmen, sophomores. And if they're just understanding or trying slightly into the MAHA space, they are asking questions or trying to learn something separate. We're kind of there to have their back and make sure that they can go become the best healer they possibly can. And so what we ended up doing some cool events in the past where we did a thing to celebrate the passing of HB 2164 here in Arizona with Rob Schneider and a panel of guests, including Dr. Gator and Andrew Gruel. Um, they came in and we just did a panel where these families were allowed to come in, ask questions to people, and even the lawmakers that passed it, Representative Leo Biasucci, and just learn about the policy and learn how they can get it implemented into their school before it was legally mandated to be implemented by, which is 2027. So if parents want their school to have this natural or have the removal of petroleum food dyes and move it to a natural food coloring um, like blue spirulina or things like that, they can go to their school board and demand changes and go through that route. And so we just basically held this big educational event at a school here in Arizona and the American Leadership Academy. And we just parents got to come learn. We did a cooking panel afterwards with Chef Andrew Gruel and Leslie Means from Shake Up Superfoods, and
How fun.
we were able to kind of just they showed a whole room of parents like, well, these are some other alternative ingredients. This is the best way you can make dinners this way, or have you ever thought of replacing this ingredient with this ingredient? And so it was just to try to create this big educational night with also the ability for a call to action of what they can do now to implement this into their own child's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Thing was when that was successful, we started to see a real interest from students. It was actually was that event when we started posting the videos on social media from it that we saw our first group of students come to us to ask to start a chapter, and that was the students that are now at our Davidson College chapter out in North Carolina. And that was when we realized, okay, this could be more than just we target a couple of students here or there and we fund them to go to school. This could be where we're building culture on campuses through chapters. And so now we have officially got 3 chapters up and running: Davidson College, Texas State University, and Kaiser University down in West Palm Beach, Florida. And these chapters are just building a community of students that are thinking this natural lifestyle, and we bring them the resources, speakers, activities, and other fun stuff to go and actually live that lifestyle. So last month we did our first chapter meetings where we did was called Floats and First Steps, and we taught our students at Texas State and Davidson. This was prior to the Kaiser University chapter starting, and
Mm-hmm.
taught them how to make root beer floats with literally 5 ingredients. So we did ice cream for bears, which is sweetened with honey, and I believe that's only like 3 other ingredients. And then we did Zevia root beer, which is an all natural soda that's based number one ingredient is carbonated water, and the next thing is organic cane sugar. So, and that's a sweetener that I think personally we need to get back to is honey and organic cane sugar,
Yeah.
the 2 most purest, simplest ways to sweeten something. And for whatever reason, those are out of the system completely. And so these chapters now are just kind of trying. We're trying to create them to be hubs on their college campuses where these students can just help other students learn about the natural lifestyle, how they can get involved in the MAHA movement, and ultimately, like it says, try to create a healthier future for everyone.
That's awesome. To play a little bit devil's advocate here, I feel like the indoctrination and all, the pushing the medicine, all the bad stuff essentially, really starts in high school.
Yeah, and that is something actually that since you bring it up, we are working on a high school program, and this is something that I'm actually working a little bit with too with Mike Tyson's son Miguel around how do we get to these students and find students that maybe aren't in the best situations to go on and be doctors that but are excelling in these programs to actually go do so. And so we're working on some programs to launch high school chapters. We want to be able to target students that are excelling in science and other biological um, education or classes and courses so that they can go. We can identify them and help them get into pre-med programs or pre-healthcare programs of their choosing, and eventually they'll will be able to kind of start funneling students into better programs that have less. We want to eventually someday be able to tell students what med schools they can and shouldn't go to because
Hmm.
based on what the requirements to get in. So if we're sitting around preaching medical freedom, which we are, we don't want students to have to go then to a med school that requires them to get a million vaccines and be updated on everything. We want those students to be able to choose, well, I'm going to go to the school that allows me to be me and go get a medical degree.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like GCU, where I graduated from in 2023, was really one of those schools that were like they allowed you to be who you are and give you the real education. At least through my
Yeah,
program, they did. But I know GCU was known for one of their medical programs too, among other things. So I feel like not to be a bias or anything like that, but I feel like GCU is a really good school for that teaching as well. But how would you say health and diet plays into mental health? Because I feel like study shows, and it's just completely obvious too. Um, when you have a poor diet, a bad diet filled with fast food, candy, all of that crap, you're more likely to have bad mental health versus the ones that eat, vegetables and the clean food all the time.
yeah, that's exactly right. Like we know that a better nutrition and better diet will impact your life in more ways than just physical health. It helps in mental health. It can help in mindset. It can fix like your cloudiness of the mind and things like that.
Hmm.
We know that there's different like supplements and stuff that people can take, like ashwagandha or nootropics or things like that, that almost work as a natural form of like Adderall, where people are able to focus better and just understand and retain information better. And I think you're completely right. Like we need to be able to branch this. The mental health crisis is a major problem in the United States right now. Do not bark. Um,
He just
and
wants to comment too.
yeah,
Like, I agree.
he wants to attack the big pharmaceutical people too. He wants to go get them. You're fine. Yeah, sorry about that. But
No, you're fine.
the to bring it back to the mental health problem, we
Yeah.
have this issue where we as soon as a kid comes in that has some sort of mental health problem, what is the first thing they put them on? Is some sort of like SSRI or some sort of
Hmm.
prescription that's like, well, this is going to fix your depression. This is instead of like, well, let's get to the root of the problem. I think um, like therapies are a good option as well. That needs to be not villainized so much. But that also goes back to the whole point of people are just lazy and they don't want to sit through things and talk about
Hmm.
problems. People want to keep things compressed in and not really try to fix the problem themselves. So we're in this situation too where like you can talk about diet and talk about medicine, and that's something that actually comes to mind with one of the students at our Texas State chapter. When she started fixing her diet, her mindset on things started to change drastically, and that's what's so cool about this is it doesn't matter if you're doing a diet to lose weight or get in shape or um, change something about a chronic illness you may have or a sickness you're trying to prevent yourself from getting or things like that. There's the nutrition and diet change can help really anyone and everyone, and it just needs to be more available and easier for people to access.
And more affordable.
Yes, yes, yep. And I think that comes with too with the changing of markets, and
Hmm.
that's something that I really hope that the Vital Choice Project is able to affect down the line. Is where if we have a college apparatus of students where that we're influencing enough students and they're refusing to buy certain products, then the hope is that eventually those products will come off the shelf and a much healthier option will get pushed into that shelf space. It's almost like any other you know think technology in the past where now everything's LED light bulbs because it saves energy or that everything else around us seems to be getting more efficient except our food and diet. And it's because I really do believe it's because our generation with Gen Z, and just the access we have to so many things has made us lackadaisical on so many like disciplinary things with ourselves, and we don't embrace the we don't embrace like the fight of really pushing for something and trying to take control of our own lives the best way we possibly
Hmm.
can. And I think that we just have to, in order to make things more affordable, we just have to stop buying the garbage that there is, because eventually the costs of the things that aren't purchased as much are going to go down, because that's something that more people are wanting, and it's getting, if the prices of it aren't um, lowered, then either they're going to go out of business because a much cheaper alternative will come to life, or they can just fix the ingredients themselves and stay where it's at. Like we have, I think Walmart just announced that they're removing all of the petroleum food dyes from the Good Value or Great Value brand. Um,
Hmm.
we saw Target do it with the Good and Gather stuff. Kellogg's is removing the petroleum food dyes from things. Now, Kellogg's is still not great for you, but they're at least starting to notice the market changes. That's something I think we have to try to fight for.
Definitely. Um, I just had a thought, but I totally forgot about it. So for right now, I'm going to mention that if whoever's watching tonight, feel free to throw your questions into the chat. We can see it on the screen. We can answer your questions that you may have. But I was going to say, um, when it comes to food options too, they always make the unhealthy choices more cheaper than the healthier options.
Yes. Yep. And that's, I think, comes down to access in the way it's distributed. um,
Hmm.
we we have this process, like for example, bring it back to like the pesticide issue. It's hard to get organics because there's just less organic farms. When there's less of something but people want a lot of it, they can jack the prices up. I think it's designed that way in a almost in a sense, because the longer that they're able to keep the prices of healthier things high, the people will continue to go back to just junk food, go back to unhealthy options, and that will eventually it keeps chronic illness rates rising, it keeps sickness around, and it doesn't optimize our society to branch out and get healthier. So I think that, like, to make things to make the healthier products cheaper, we need to increase the access to it, which means getting rid of the access to the other items.
But it's also addictive too. All those
Yes.
ingredients. It's all addictive. Sometimes I find myself going constantly to like chips and the ramen and the pre-packed stuff. I'm not perfect. I do eat healthy for the most part, but unfortunately, it's just I find myself drawn more to the Doritos and whatnot. But I stop myself most times. Like, okay, you had a little bit, having a little bit is not bad, but when you're overdoing it, that's when it becomes bad and detrimental to your health.
Yeah, I mean, we are. I believe it's McDonald's that adds sugar to its lettuce, or at least used
Oh,
to.
really? I didn't know that.
There's like produce that we add sugar to because it makes things more addictive, like you said. And I
Hmm.
actually learned about this when I was in the Czech Republic, and they have a like less than 2% obesity rate. Some of the people had like never even heard of diabetes, is how just rare it is. They have like hundreds less ingredients that they are allowed into their food supply. Most things are made naturally, but it was a conversation between me and my roommate that I was staying with, and we were talking about like the McDonald's menu, how like in other countries there's like there's like exclusive items to that country, and I can't remember what it was in the Czech Republic, but we got on the topic of like the differences between American McDonald's and Czechoslovakian McDonald's, and the thing that came up was just how we were like looking at just ingredients, and there's like sugar in like the lettuce, tomatoes, and they didn't have that there. It was actual like lettuce and it was real food.
Wild. So wild.
And I
Yeah,
remember,
it is brainwashing. Brainwashing Christian. Yeah, and free range too. Gosh, it's crazy to me. Like
yeah,
we're so sick as a nation.
yeah, I mean, we've been like I've been in this movement now for like 2 years almost, and it really was because I got a chronic illness and I did not want to live the way that I was being told I
Mm-hmm.
had to live the rest of my life. And so I met a chiropractor and they basically were like, there's options. You can try diet, stretches, exercise, all these different things. And the cool thing that not everyone has the ability to have was the doctor at the time that was treating me was open to the natural idea and had a little bit of an understanding of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is rare. But he didn't just say, "Oh, we're going to remove the portion of your colon that's inflamed. Oh, we're going to put you on a ton of medicine." Instead, when we told him like, "Well, we would like to do this as natural as possible," he got me off prednisone. He got me off the acid suppressant. I can't remember what it was called, but
Mm-hmm.
he helped me get off prescriptions and gave me advice around what I should and shouldn't be eating, and those things actually worked. And so like we cut out in the very beginning, we cut out all the food that I was eating and went down to rice and unseasoned chicken, and that was it that in the beginning. And then we also added in we did juicing, which was we did cabbage juice, and the reason for that,
Mm.
there was a study in like the 1970s or 60s. I can't remember exactly when, but it was a study that looked at a vitamin called vitamin U, which actually stood for ulcer. So with having ulcerative colitis, it was shown that there was a decrease in like the inflammation from drinking cabbage juice. So we're like, well, let's try this.
I gotta
And
try that.
it worked, and it helped. Like I'm to the point now where I really kind of eat whatever I want again. Like I wouldn't say I eat terrible. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to eat as natural as possible. But if I go out to eat or something, it's not like I'm gonna have crazy side effects just because I, ate one seasoning that might be spicy and cause a problem. So we know that real healing can happen from these chronic illnesses. It's just down to us to, make the change ourselves.
Definitely. And I also want to mention again, if you're just tuning in, if you have questions, put it in the chat. We can see it and we'll answer those questions accordingly, whatever questions you may have. But it also comes down to, smoking habits, drug habits, alcohol habits. If we're over consuming that too, that plays a role too.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was reading a study that actually showed Gen Z is drinking less than the generation before us, which I found was really
Did see that.
interesting.
Yeah.
I don't drink really ever, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a lot of friends that don't as much either. Um, I have friends
Yeah.
that do, but there is quite a few that don't, and I think it's interesting because I don't know what is causing that. To be completely honest, I don't know what is causing the shift, but it is a good shift. So whatever's causing it is doing the right thing.
I mean, I've also seen studies where like a glass of red wine, but this is again all in moderation. A glass of red wine is healthy for something. I forget what it was, or white was good for this. I do use, and I mean, support those ideas. Do you think those
Yeah,
are false?
I know the wine when you're I think it's good or bad bacteria or something. It's good bacteria.
Yeah, for cardiovascular or something.
Yeah, I can't remember
I don't
exactly what
remember.
it is. But yeah, there's everything is okay in moderate. And I think that's something too that we just have to get in our minds. The problem is the only thing that is the option usually is the bad option, so we're not consuming it in moderate.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, again, it's also biblical too. Moderation. The Bible teaches moderation. I mean, Jesus is probably going to be my best friend because he turned water into wine. Just saying. But but I mean, it comes down to the Bible as well because it also teaches moderation, not overindulging. Gluttony is the word I was looking for. So again, moderation is key with everything. But so we talked about mental health. We talked about the addictive drugs, the addictive additives. I mean, what else do you have for me?
I guess some of the cool things that like are in the work for the future of like this health movement. I think something that I'm excited about is hearing rumors of a potential change to the nutritional guidelines, which would be
Mm-hmm.
huge because part of the one of the things that is most people might not know is fats are good, and the current system with like the my plate is you're not supposed to have fats. It's all about carbs. It's all about you're supposed to have your protein, carbs, and it shows like don't have butter, don't have pork. That's because it's too fatty, or don't have make sure it's lean steak. And I think something that is actually good for us, and studies show this, is fats. And I think a change to the nutritional guidelines and what we promote out as a good diet or a healthy diet, um, changing that can help change the problem a lot as well.
Yeah. So, what about legislatively? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier and mentioned how California bans synthetic dyes and chemicals in foods. Um, Quick side note, though, I feel like my ADHD brain's like going like different directions right now. I think of different stuff, and it's just I gotta get it straight. But before I go into what I was going to talk about, I want to mention that when I was in middle school during the Obama administration, not to age myself here, but uh, the Obama administration, I think it was backed by the First Lady. She took out certain foods and drinks. Gatorade was a huge one in school lunches. So that kind of brings me into what I was going to talk about was what is Arizona doing legislatively? Governor Hobbs, maybe Senator.
Yeah, so Arizona, they are going to try to ban soda from SNAP. That is something
Hmm.
that was actually was vetoed the first time it was written, and I don't understand why. Like, I think the SNAP battle that I see is kind of, if you fight it, I I don't know why you're like, I just, to me, I think you're paid off if you end up fighting it, because what it does is it removes taxpayer funded programs from being allowing people that use those programs to buy unhealthy like drinks. Um,
Hmm.
Soda is one of those things, and it's wild to me that it was vetoed here. Another some other like pieces of legislation that I know are happening that are around like the MAHA stuff is like banning of geoengineering, removing fluoride from waters. Just we're trying to clean up the supply through legislation, and the states that are doing it, it's really cool that they are, because they're kind of the first in the nation to be doing this stuff. Like Arizona did the petroleum food dye ban, and immediately after it was passed, a bunch of other states were starting to write up their versions and amend their state constitutions, or write new laws that help in that process. And I think Arizona kind of led the nation in that petroleum food dye fight. And like RFK came to the state here. I got to the privilege to sit in the roundtable that he did here with the House and Senate of Arizona, and it was very cool to kind of just experience and see that there are people at the very top that are very passionate about this issue, and they're trying very very hard to fight it. The problem is these are very difficult fights to have. For example, in Texas, there were lobbyists that came in and against some of the bills, like the SNAP bill, for example. I've seen clips and stuff and heard of stories of lobbyists being out in these hearings and trying to tell and convince these legislators that soda does not is not a bad for you drink. Sugar does not increase obesity. Doesn't, and it's just wild to see people sit there and testify under these things when we know that's blatantly false.
Yeah. What about health insurance costs? I know it's pretty expensive here. So what about Arizona?
Yeah, I think it's expensive everywhere. I think
Yeah.
insurance, kind honestly, is going up right now. I don't know too much of like how you could fix the problem through legislation. Where I definitely, it's possible. It's just the insurance lobby is another very powerful lobby, and
Hmm.
going up against them, it can be tough. Some laws that I personally think should be written, and I mean, if I was a legislator, would be things that I would try to get done, would be like informed consent. I'd like to try to create. So and I've floated the idea to some people too that are in positions of like, how do we get it so that you can't prescribe until you have a for sure guaranteed diagnosis. For example, in my story, they diagnosed me with pancreatitis 3 weeks before they figured out what I actually had, which was ulcerative colitis. They started treating me for pancreatitis, and I think that's where some forms of medical malpractice can happen. Luckily, I don't know if I had direct side effects from the misdiagnosis, but I know people do all the time. I think that
Hmm.
in order for doctors and um, physicians to be able to prescribe, they should have a direct understanding of what their patient has before they go and move forward with, we're going to do the surgery, we're going to prescribe this, blah blah blah. So I think that's something that can be solved through legislation. Vaccine mandates are something that can be solved through legislation. Informed consent should be solved through legislation, some form of patient bill of rights, and things like that, where before you take something, you have complete and total transparency of what it is and what it could potentially do to you. We see that at this with the battle right now to remove pharmaceutical ads from TVs, where they have so many loopholes where they can kind of hide or not show directly what all the side effects are or how likely those side effects are. Um, and that's where I think the legislation battles come into play and where we have a really good shot at getting some of this stuff done. We just now need Congress to act, and sadly, Congress doesn't like to do things. So we're in that situation once again where we have good ideas that are on the table. We know that some of these bills have already been written. In my job with as a legislative analyst, I'm reading bills every
Hmm.
day about some of these problems, and the amount of them that I read that are, been stuck in committee for months or are dead in the water, it's sad because we have solutions to some of the problems, and our legislators and lawmakers are too lazy to act or bought and paid for to act or not truly putting their constituents' issues firsthand.
Garrett for Congress 2026. I petition that.
I'm not eligible. I'm only 22.
In a few years.
Maybe, yeah.
uh, man. But I love what you're doing. I love the Vital Choice Project. From what I've seen on social media and your website and everything like that, we've talked on OEM too before. So if
Yeah.
anyone has seen that or wants to go see that interview, it's somewhere on the World Wide Web. Don't know where it is now since I don't work there anymore, but it's somewhere out there. So if you want to see that, go search it somewhere. I don't know, but yeah, I really love what you're doing. And how can people in California get involved? Do you have anything that's going on out here? Is there something in the works for expanding?
Yeah, so one of the people that's been a really cool advisor to us and kind of mentor through the project is Dr. Joel Gator, and he is actually out in Los Angeles, and he's been helping us a little bit get connected to people because the goal is obviously is to get chapters on as many colleges as possible. So for any student that may be watching or parents of a student that is interested in health or directly going to school for something health related, reach out to us. Our website is thevcp.org/join us. Fill out that form and we'll get in touch with you and see if it's something we can start a chapter at your campus or apply a student to the Breakaway Grant Program or bring in speakers to your campus, anything like that. That's really the best way of getting involved with us is going to our website, following us on social media, which is the VC Project _ and that's our for Instagram and X. And people can just any ideas that people have too for if they want different versions of the chapter or different activities or community events. That's kind of where we are here to kind of gather and build a community and culture around this movement. And yeah, so college kids, any parents of college age kids, reach out to us and let's make their campus healthier.
Now, what about for lawmakers who might be running for office or position or who are in office and say, hey, this might be good for my platform? Is there a way that they can get involved?
Yeah, so as a 501(c)(3), we directly can't like endorse or push policy. We can talk about and educate people on it, and different like we can educate people on different ways of voting and why they should vote, but we can't tell them which way to do it. But
Hmm.
anyone that wants to work on, you know, legislatively, some of the legislation maybe that we talked about here or some of the other ideas that we have for in the future with like we want to require schools to teach nutrition. Maybe we amend phy-ed programs where you already have a mandated class of physical education, but let's add nutrition within that already written curriculum. There's a lot of different ways that we can go about getting MAHA legislation enacted. So any person that is in a position of legislator, reach out to us and let's see what kind of cool stuff we can do.
Awesome. Well, where can they find you? I know you mentioned a little bit, but just kind of for folks who might be tuning in, just missed it, where can they learn about you, follow your platform, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so our Instagram is TVC project underscore, and then our website is thevcp.org. And then our direct join us is thevcp.org/join us. And then if you want anyone that is interested in funding students or grants or any of our breakaway tours or chapters, you can make tax deductible donations at thevcp.org/donate.
Cool. And we're just hitting the 50-minute mark. But your final comment, maybe a piece of advice to everybody, but final remark for you.
Yeah, there is 100% light at the end of the tunnel in this issue. This is an issue that I really truly believe we can solve in this generation. I think that we have the ability and the momentum right now to capitalize on something really truly amazing and get back to the basics of understanding God's created everything we already need to be a successful and thriving society, and it's just time for us to get back to the basics of living naturally.
Yep, totally agree. And being natural doesn't mean you're a hippie,
Yeah,
it doesn't have anything to do with that. I know like movies and cinema like to portray it as like hippie and all that, but it's not. It's just healthier for you
yeah,
at the end of the day. So, but Garrett, I thank you so much for coming on today. I'm going to lead us out with our lead promo. But again, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate it.
thank you.
Where we going, yeah.